What do you got for me?
What's wrong with you people?
I got nothing for you.
What's wrong?
You're not David. How y'all feel this morning? I feel rotten. That's how I feel. Well, that was enough for me. We could have had the benediction right there. That was so good.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to The Reformatory, the podcast for the local church and by the local church, and we are your local churchmen. My name is Josh, and I'm here, as always, with Captain Jack Barry. Jack, my friend, it is good to see you. How you doing? How
I'm doing.
How you doing? How you doing?
Dude, you trying to be Tommy DeVito from the Giants?
That's right. How you doing? Yeah.
you tried to get your Sicilian on, man?
Yeah, you know, I mean,
Oh
you
my
know, when you're
gosh,
married to
dude.
the Italian man, you know,
Oh,
you
man,
gotta
yep.
be able to pull it out of the woodwork every once in a while, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. When needed.
My dad grew up in a very Sicilian Slavic household.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you have cousins named Mario and
Yeah.
and Nick, you growing up super Sicilian. So,
Dude, my wife had a great uncle. All right, get this. Romeo Vernarelli.
Mercy.
Romeo,
Yeah,
dude,
that's-
it does not get any more Italian than that, son.
I think I have a great grandfather named Giuseppe. So
Giuseppe?
it's,
That's awesome. That's a baller
yeah,
name.
dude,
That's a baller name.
It gets redonk. So
That's
yep.
funny, dude.
Oh,
That's
man.
funny. Dude, it's good to see you. Been a while.
Yes,
Um,
as always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's little baby Theo? He's still doing good?
Yeah, so we're starting to sleep train him. I got my
Nice.
monitor on him right now. So
There you
we're doing this sleep training. It's basically like you do the routine with him, you change his diaper, you read him a couple stories, you pray with them, and then you just put him in the bed and say, "Good night, we're done. I'll see you in the morning," and just shut the lights off. And
Right.
then you have to be so restrained to
Right.
not go in there whenever he cries.
Right.
And it's like right now, it's like clockwork.
Mm-hmm.
I wait for 5 minutes
Okay.
because they said you just have to wait. You have to do it in increments of 5. Don't pick him up. Just check
Sure.
on him.
Yeah.
So it's like increments of 5. So I literally, every time I do it, he falls asleep within 5 minutes of him crying.
There you go.
And it's like clockwork. And my wife did it one time and she went over 5 minutes. So I feel like I have the touch.
Look at you.
So
Look at you, man. He knows. He knows
Just
when
saying.
Dad puts him
Anyway.
down. It's this is serious. This is serious. You know, like
yeah, you
Dad's
got
laying the law
for all
down.
of those. For all those watching on YouTube, you can kind of see him. He's
Look
not.
at that little
he's not
guy.
facing the camera,
Oh,
but he's passed out.
Dude,
passed
he's
out in the crib,
Stomach
so.
sleeper. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, now
Good for him.
he's doing that. He was
Yeah.
exclusively on his side or his back, but probably
Mhm.
within the last like couple weeks, he's been stomach sleeping. So,
Cute little dude.
and it's
Right
like,
on.
all right,
Hey, love it. Jack, I was at the lounge
yeah.
today and I was gifted. Those on YouTube can see I was gifted some sticks. I got me some H. Upman and I got me some Trinidad. Look at that. Oh, they're so good. I'm so
Josh.
excited for these.
We could probably talk about this on the Podluck
Yeah.
about the circumstances surrounding things.
Oh, sure.
Josh is living the dream right now, people. Josh is literally, I am living vicariously through Josh now, exclusively as far as work goes. Because we'll talk
Sure.
about it on the Podluck.
Yes.
But man,
Yeah, some
I'm
employment
jelly.
shakeups.
I'm super
Some temporary employment shakeups
Yeah.
that have resulted in me stepping into just and it's going to be short time, but a short time stint doing some pretty cool stuff with possibly some like cigars and things like that. So yeah, we'll talk about it more on the Podluck, because that's where the people go. The people go for when they want, that's where all the real stuff happens over there on the Podluck.
Real reformed hours.
That's right. That's right. The reformatory after hours. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, Jack, before we hop into our topic, my brother, why don't you give us this week's reformatory cigar of the week? What do you got for us?
All right. So, as promised, people, December is for Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. We are on this kick of trying to match up cigar brand names with the months of the year. Yeah. And this week we have for you probably one of the most sweeter cigars I've ever smoked in my life that isn't really supposed to do that. Okay. So this cigar originally came out in 2019, and there was so much fanfare over this when it came out, because people started to smoke this thing, and people were like, did Steve Saka, the maker of Dunbarton, mess with the blend? Did he sweet tip these things or not? He messed with people so bad. So this is the Sobremesa Brulee by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. It came out with a lot of fanfare, and I mean, I have smoked this in 2 different Vitola sizes. I've smoked this in the Robusto, and I've smoked this in the Toro. I honestly prefer the Toro. The Toro, you get a little bit better flavor in it. But man, once you cut it and just put that cigar in your mouth, I don't know how this thing is supposed to be naturally flavored, because that thing tastes like a Cinnabon. A Cinnabon.
It does.
A cinnamon
it's
roll.
Very, very
It tastes
sweet.
exactly like it. So, and even the flavors when you're smoking it, like that first couple like draws, dude, it is a very sweet cigar, and then it starts to mellow out a little bit. But man, if you just like want something like sweet that's not infused, this is not infused, but
I don't know. They say it's not. That's like this cigar. Okay, when I first had this, because I think you gave me this. I think you gave me this when I visited that one time, and you were like, and I smoked it, and I was like, what is this? Like, what did you just give me? And I'm like, dude, we don't smoke
Cinnabon in a
It's
cigar.
not what we do. And you're like, it's not. They swear it's not. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, that's.
They even did a whole campaign where like he basically gave you 5 different blendings of the Sobremesa, and this is the Sobremesa, Brulee when it first came out like this, when it was like a little bit sweeter. And they were like, see, you can't tell. Like, he was completely messing with everybody. I think it was just a ploy. It was like, whatever. Anyway, people, this cigar, primarily this is the Robusto with what, like I said, I like the Toro. The Toro is going to run you up about $1 more, but honestly, I'll break it down. It is not that bad. It is Nicaraguan, again. The wrapper is Ecuadorian Connecticut. The binder is Mexican. It is it's interesting. The region of Mexico, or the plot of land, is called Matacapa Negro de Temporal.
Look at you.
So it is not Mexican San Andreas. Usually a lot of people put Mexican San Andreas to get kind of that more coffee or sweeter tasting.
Absolutely.
Hey, and then the fillers are Nicaraguan, and it is literally the most craziest like Nicaraguan breakdown of tobaccos, because it's like Contega C/SG. Like, what is this?
Right.
So it's like from specific plots of land, and like Esteli, like Ligero, which is like that's really strong tobacco. But then it's like different Carrillo, which is a different other type of tobacco. But basically it's a mix mash. It's not exclusively Nicaraguan, but the fillers are pretty heavy on the Nicaraguan.
Yeah.
All right. So the Robusto This is $12.45. The Robusto is $12.45. The Toro is $13.45. I think
Okay.
that's a pretty good deal.
That's not bad.
$13.45.
Yep.
This was released in August of 2019, like I said. Man, you are gonna get just an overload. This is the I feel like this is the quintessential dessert cigar.
Mhm.
If you had just a really savory, salty dinner and you're like, I need something sweet, you are going directly for this. And primarily it pairs well in the wintertime too. Because if you've had something really hearty, like a stew, my wife and I got a shepherd's pie from Costco and have been munching on that the last
there
couple
you go.
dinners.
Yep.
Yeah. And so if you just had some shepherd's pie and you were like, man, I need something sweet, you smoke this thing and it is, like I said, it's like a Cinnabon.
Lights out.
People.
Lights out. Yeah.
I feel like it's very creamy. There's subtle hints of pepper here and there, but like I feel like the overwhelming taste that you get is just like different kinds of nuts, kind of gingerbready, very creamy. It's crazy. It
Love
is
it.
bananas. So
All right.
very good cigar. Very highly. I mean, like I said, $13.45 for a Toro
It's not bad.
from a boutique blender like Dunbarton. It's pretty good, people.
Yep.
So
Alrighty.
anyway,
Well,
Go
well
and
done,
get it.
Captain, as always. Thank you for bringing your A game. My friends, that is the Reformatory Cigar of the Weekend. You know what to do, as always. Go and smoke to the glory of God. All right, Jack. So today we are going to talk about something that is going to be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me, at least. I will own this. I will own this. But it's a very important topic because it's something that I think a lot of people deal with, definitely myself included. And it's about reaching out. It's about being in community and utilizing the local body for one of the primary things that it's supposed to do, and that is to bring encouragement. All right. So I will preface this topic with this. I have noticed something about myself over the past, I don't know how long, but as you look at ways that you want to come more in line with Scripture, more in line with with Christ and who He is, right? Some things that I have found in my life, and it's even something my wife and I were having a conversation about this just recently, and she brought this up too, and I thought it was actually very insightful from her. Is that I have a tendency, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but I have a tendency to self-isolate when things are difficult in life or things are going wrong, right? I have a tendency to kind of hide away, shut the blinds and not ask for help, right? Now, I think there's a lot of reasons why that could be. I think for some people, it's a pride thing in that they don't want to be seen as weak, right? They don't want to be seen as someone who is lacking the necessary components to be able to pull themselves out of whatever it is that they're in, right? I think for some people, it's not wanting to be a burden on others, right? And that they do care for others, but they don't. That they see other people having their own issues and their own problems. They don't want to be the person that adds on to that, right? So I think there's a lot of reasons for it, and I think for me personally, it probably waffles between the two, if I'm going to be very honest. But Jack, one of the most important ways that the local church functions is that we are there for each other in times of trouble. It's one of the primary things that you and we've been talking about this for years. It's one of the reasons that you commit to the local church is because there are no lone wolf Christians. You're not supposed to be doing life by yourself. You're supposed to be in community, right? That's why God has given you the church for encouragement, accountability, and community, right? Yet, I find myself often, especially when life is very stressful, and if I'm going to be very candid with you, and I mean, Jack already knows, but with our audience as well, like this last month or month and a half has been extremely difficult. It's been so hard in so many different ways, work, and then, church stuff and family stuff. And it's nothing that I look at and I think, oh, this is the end. Right. I mean, it's nothing the church is great. The church isn't falling apart. I love the church. Right. But there are hurting people that need help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are things with, in personal life with family that you wish was better and that you're trying to help, trying to, things like that. And there's been so much, and then compound that with, putting sermons together and trying to be faithful at work and a good employee, and just, trying to keep a relationship together, with the closeness that you have with friends, your marital relationship, right? And it's been just a month and a half of, it just seems like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And obviously the Lord is in that, right? He's sanctifying, his people when he does that. It's the fires of affliction that cause us to be molded more into the image of Christ, right? But what I cannot afford to do, and what I find myself doing often, is when I'm feeling that stress, when I'm feeling that worry or that depression, I internalize it. I try to crush it in my mind vice until it's small and manageable. When what I should be doing is reaching out, asking for help, asking for prayer, being vulnerable, and showing my weakness so that I can be brought up. I can be given strength by the people of God, right? And it's so ironic. I find it so funny that it's so easy to preach. It's so easy to talk about. It's so easy to encourage people and how, oh, this is what you should be doing. You should be, when you're feeling that, reach out, send the text, right? Make the phone call. And then, of course, it's a whole different ball game when, now, I mean, it's you now, like maybe practice what you preach there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, that those conversations, I think, spurred this topic is the importance of utilizing the local church in that way and reaching out, especially in difficult times. All right. Your thoughts, Jack? I've rambled.
Yeah. I was just listening. So this is very providential because I was listening to Alistair Begg. Somebody shared this online about how he was talking about cyberspace and chat rooms. I think he's like, yet again, this is a man who's probably not in tune with the newer generations. But you gotta
and
admit, when he says stuff, dude, he is just, dude, you cannot, you're like in a trance when he talks because he's Scottish.
Yeah.
And he's like explaining stuff and going through the Bible and talking about the church. So he's talking about like the importance of the local church and how it's important that we show up and that we invest in people's lives. And like, you're not going to get this in cyberspace. Like, you're not going to get this in a chat room. And it's true. Right. You're just not. Like, the way that you talk to people, like, it's everything. The way that you just have to like walk into church sometimes and be like, this week sucked, guys. Sucked. And you just kind of rally around each other and be like, man, I know what you mean. Like, this has happened to me and this is not going well. But you have this commonality in the sense that you're all going on the same road together. Like, you're all going towards the same path. Like, you're all going towards the city of God. You're going towards like we talk about this all the time too, like Pilgrim's Progress. You're going towards that celestial city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the difficulties sometimes, like we went through some difficulties a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or two.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucked. Like it sucks seeing people be hurt by other family members in certain ways, and like just very emotional. It's tough to see that. But then you think about how the local church plays into that to help you during those times. And you think about what life would be like if we didn't have the local church. It'd just be vastly different. I think not only spiritually and emotionally, but on very other different levels too, that I think we take for granted very much. Just talking with people in person. I think we all experienced how much that plays a role and importance, especially on the Lord's Day.
Yeah.
Especially when we went through COVID, where most of you couldn't do that for months on end. And if you did, it was very regulated, or it was just very tough to do because everybody was navigating, everybody was pivoting, everybody was trying to create something and pivot and move towards a semblance of what you had before crazy COVID times. But yeah, I think that just kind of shifted everybody to be like, of course we need to gather.
Yeah.
But then you can kind of like horseshoe this, because it's like you can self-isolate. And I've done this too. When I came back from Afghanistan, I self-isolated as well too when stuff started to get hard.
Yeah.
And because it's like, nobody understands me. Nobody wants to hear my crap.
Right. Right.
And then, but you horseshoe that back around to when everybody has to stay inside their houses and do whatever and blah, 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 and quarantine, blah, 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 whatever. And immediately people start to like get pitchforks and torches and say, we need to go back to the old ways of getting inside a building and doing this and doing that. And I think sometimes we lose out on just understanding the fact that like you can gather anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like you may not have a building for a season, but the main priority is that you could be gathering. There's people I know that were gathering California. California was one of the strictest states during COVID, and they were still having people jammed up in a middle school parking lot.
Right.
Doing Lord's Day service.
Sure.
Making it happen. So I feel like sometimes we can do two things. We can like self-isolate and it hurts us in our growth and just kind of just exposing ourselves, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to walk in the light. We naturally don't want to walk in the light and live our lives with other Christians, because it's tough and it's hard. And you got to be vulnerable, and pruning sucks in your life, whether that be sin, whether that be anything. It just sucks. It's hard. Or I could just retreat and I could just sit by myself with my own thoughts and do whatever I want. But we're not called to do that.
No, we're not. But it's so easy to, you know? And I feel like part of it is just, it's so easy to believe those lies, because I really do think the enemy, like, I do think one of Satan's ploys is to isolate the sheep, right? He might not be able to have your soul, right? Because that has been bought and purchased by Christ. So he's lost that. But I don't think it means he's done with you, and he knows the buttons to push. Like, he knows your weaknesses even more than you do. And if he can somehow even use, and this is where it's like the insidious nature of it, Jack, and this is something I've been thinking about. He can take my I believe, genuine love to care for my brothers and sisters, he can take that and twist it and pervert it into creating a reason that I would not reach out to them for help. Because I care for them, because I love them, I don't want to be a burden to them, so I'm just going to keep this part of myself hidden. It's so insidious and it's so sneaky, but it is so effective, because not only are we doing, I think, what our flesh naturally wants to do, and that is to, to isolate and look a certain way, we're couching it in some sort of spiritualism. That, we're like, I don't want to reach out because I don't want to be a burden, right? And at the end of the day, it's still pride. That's what it is. I mean, it is. It's just, I mean, pride takes so many different, it puts on so many different masks, right? But like, I feel like it's like the Scooby-Doo cartoons. Like, you rip the mask off. Let's see who's under this mask. And it's like, it's pride, like, and I realize how, and the thing is, it's like, I've always known this, like we've talked about this before, but when it comes time to actually doing it, it's so difficult, right? But then I experience when I do finally do it, and I reach out and I'm like, hey, it's a tough season. I could use some prayer. I could use some help. Like, the overwhelming encouragement that I get from my brothers and sisters, it makes me ask, like, why didn't I do this Why didn't I do this from the get-go, dude? It would have been so much easier. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's so insidious how Satan can take something good about you, a good motive, and twist it and pervert it into something that is wrong.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between self-isolation and the spiritual discipline of silence and solitude.
Oh, sure.
So I think there's a big difference in that too, because what we're not saying is you can't just go be by yourself sometimes to get away.
Right.
And we're not saying that. We're saying that, spiritual disciplines are good and they're needed. And sometimes it's very refreshing to have silence and solitude, because it kind of resets you, because you have to go back into the world in order to face the garbage that we deal with on a week in, week out basis.
And all the introverts.
And sometimes silence. And so sometimes you need that silence and solitude. Like, sometimes you need a weekend where you're out in nature and you don't have distractions and you don't have the things that you usually deal with to kind of reset. And be, I would say, and I'm not trying to make this like a spiritual kind of nirvana, but there's a way in which the noise, the way in which the noise that you deal with on a daily basis, whether that be job, your phone, all this stuff, you can kind of like put that down and try and find a place where you can kind of like retreat for maybe like a weekend to kind of reset. There's a difference between that. And then there's also a difference between what Josh is talking about, where you are not doing that.
Right.
I can see how people could use silence and solitude to kind of co-opt why they're self-isolating.
Right.
So like you said, spiritualizing things. But what we're talking about in self-isolation is you don't want to interact with people because that interaction is there's either going to be good or bad conflict from that. There's going to be pruning. There's going to be shearing off of. I've been watching a lot of farrier videos, Josh, where they're like taking that cow hoof and just getting that white line
farrier videos
damage. The rocks are in the hooves of the cow, and you just got to scrape that thing away
scrape it.
Put some acid on it to get all the gunk out of the area, and put a block on the cow's hoof.
You have been watching a lot of farrier videos. Oh my gosh.
I'm going deep. I'm going deep, dude.
You're in a farrier YouTube hole, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going deep. Anyway, you don't want that. Like, self-isolation is, you don't want the church because tough stuff is going to happen if you show up.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be that hard even. Like I remember I wanted to self-isolate, and it was strictly because like I didn't want to deal with people
Sure.
when I came back from deployment. And then I would get calls from people in my local church, be like, "Hey, what are you up to? Hey, you want to have dinner tonight?" And it would be awkward because like they know I'm kind of self-isolating
Right.
because I don't want to deal with people. And it's
Mhm.
like, why don't you come around and hang out? And it's like, I don't.
Right.
Because
Right.
in one way or the other, you're afraid. You're afraid that people will either do a couple things. You're afraid that people will say bad things about you and quote unquote judge you.
Mhm.
Or you're afraid that people will say the right thing and you'll get convicted and you'll be like, oh crap.
I have to change now.
Like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's tough on any level. And I get that. But there's an element to the local church, and I think I've accepted this a little bit more because the way that I grew up, I didn't have the local church. It felt like I had this incomplete dynamic to my family. And then when I became a Christian, the local church, anywhere I went, it felt like that was my new family, you know? And I think it made it more real too when I like finally left the nest and I had to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky and go through my Army training for the first time. I was there at a local church in Louisville. It was basically a whole bunch of 20 somethings. It felt like my family.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other families that were scattered in there, but it felt like people cared for me.
Mhm.
And we specifically tried to make rhythms in order to fellowship with one another and hang out with one another because we cared about one another.
Right.
And so there was when you just understand too, just the importance of the local family and how the local church family and how that dynamic actually kind of helps you to a certain degree, by just showing up,
Yeah.
by just showing up, by just like trying to live life out
It's true,
in
man.
the way that God has called us to in the local church, you know?
It is. Yeah.
And sometimes that looks different. Like my wife did, we have 2 services on the Lord's Day, and she did both of them, doing worship, singing in the worship team. And you dang right, we got Theo up. And you dang right, I was taking care of him most of those service times.
Sure.
And making coffee. And surprisingly enough, I think one of my pastors is trying to live vicariously through me because he has 4 girls.
Okay.
And he really wanted a boy, and they wanted to name their boy Theo. And so
Really?
he holds my son a lot because I
Nice.
think he's like, I just want to live vicariously.
Just like,
through
yes, please,
somebody
Father,
who
bless
has a
him.
son."
Take him.
Yes. Anyway,
Bring him into the
So,
fold.
but it's just like those little things. Like when one of your pastors holds your kids. And I think this is like the first time it's the first time I've experienced this in my life, but it's like, that's a different dynamic
It is, dude. Yeah.
because that's a level of, wow, they actually care for you and they care
Yeah.
for your well-being
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
they want to seek your well-being. And so
It really brings that whole,
there's just a lot of stuff.
yeah.
There's just
Yeah.
a lot of blessing that comes from being a part of a local church family, that when you self-isolate, you are literally putting a physical barrier
Mm-hmm.
and saying no. And even though you think it's good for you, like it will stymie your kind of communal spiritual growth as well,
Yeah.
too. Just tough.
That's 100%
So-
right, man. Yeah, that's a really good word, bro. It really is. And I can attest to that. You know, I can attest to being on both sides of that. It both encouraging people not to self-isolate and then feeling the effects of doing it myself, right? And it's part of
Yeah.
that pruning and that work that the Holy Spirit does in my own heart of showing me more and more how inadequate I am to handle the things that I go through. right? And that we're going to go through very difficult things in this life because it's a fallen world, and we live around sinful people. Sinful things happen, and you have a choice. You can try to do the lone wolf Christian thing and even couch it in some sort of weird spirituality or weird, trying to put flowers on the dead pig and be like, oh, like, yeah, I'm doing it out of love. I'm doing it out of, I don't want to be a burden, right? You can take that route, or you can take the route that is, and that route is easier at the beginning. And I would say harder the more you go. Or you can take the route that's hardest at the beginning, but easier afterward. And that is to reach out. Don't self-isolate. Be the person that is vulnerable and shows their brothers and sisters who they are, without fear of judgment, without fear of thinking, oh, they're going to think less of me because, I should be farther along in my spiritual journey than this. Or if you're in leadership, right? Like, this is a new dynamic too. Like, once you come into church leadership, it's like, I'm an elder or I'm a deacon. I'm supposed to have this under my belt, right? And if I show this weakness, it's going to call into question my calling or my fitness to lead the church. Those are all lies. Lies that the father of lies himself plants in your head and in your soul. And if you give in to those, it is a matter of time to where you will reap the benefits of those lies, because you're going to continue to self-isolate, to not confess when you need help, to not bring yourself, put yourself in the arms and the care of the people that are called to care for you. And that's the local church, right?
Yeah.
Because when you do that, and this is something that I have experienced time and time again, and that I experienced even today, reaching out to one of the families in our church, a 5-minute conversation on the phone left me with such joy that I literally hung up the phone and I started crying because of how much love I felt from them, even in just a very quick conversation.
Yeah,
man, it's such a wonderful feeling to be cared for, and you're gonna miss out on that blessing that comes from the Lord Jesus to His people. You're gonna miss out on that if you don't reach out and you don't be the one to admit you need help and to admit you're struggling. There's such blessing that comes from God's people when we do that. And frankly, I'm tired of missing out on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really am, and it's something that like I constantly have to remind myself, because I know it's something I struggle with. I know it's something that I struggle with, and I know I struggle with making it spiritual and making it about the other person. And, at the end of the day, it's just about me. Like, I just want to, I want to be able to deal with it. I want to be able to be the one that handles it, right? Because that's what I do. Like, I'm a counselor. I fix stuff. Why, if I can't even fix myself, how can I help fix other people, right? And it's not me. It's not me. It's the Holy Spirit. Right. And we forget that. We forget that so often. So I don't know, man. Like, it's just, those are some thoughts that have been kind of running through my head recently. And just I hope it's an encouragement to somebody that's listening, that if you are listening to this and you are in that stage right now where you're feeling burdened and you're feeling, stressed, anxious, depressed, like things are going on in your life right now, and it feels like you're in a storm. Don't try to walk on those waves by yourself. Don't do it. Right?
Yeah.
Reach out to the wonderful resource that God has given you, and it's His people. And you will find such blessing and encouragement and love and care from those people. But you got to reach out. You got to do it. You got to stop hiding and pretending like everything's okay. Right? That's I can tell you from experience. It doesn't It doesn't end well.
And sometimes it just takes one step.
Yep.
Just takes, hey,
Yep.
you may not, words may fail you. So maybe it's just like, hey, can you meet for coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that
Yeah.
can help out massively.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I always find like a good like outlet is if I meet somebody from church for like coffee or like a meal or something like that. That always helps out.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take much.
Yeah. Even someone just send
then-
a text like, hey, I'm not doing okay. I need
Yeah.
help. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to be Shakespeare with your words
No, you don't. No, you don't.
to express that you're not doing okay. Because people know, because, people should know how that feeling is.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I mean, like we're talking about, it just takes that to reach out and to talk to people. And I think that's what's going to be the encouragement and the exhortation is the interaction. Maybe not so much the words, but I think
Right.
the interaction is important that happens because I think there's something that God is doing kind of in the background when two people of his church are gathered and they're trying to kind of walk through life together.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's something that's, I mean, we obviously, we may not talk about spirituality or the spiritual realm, so to say, in this podcast a whole lot, but there's something there's a mystery to that dynamic, but
Yeah.
God's in that kind of midst working and wanting his church to be refined and to be more like the Lord Jesus. And so,
Yep.
yeah, there's just something very reassuring that I know that I have outlets that
Yeah.
I know my flesh and blood family just really cannot answer
Yeah.
for, to be quite honest. So,
It's true, man. It's true. The church is such a blessing, and
Yeah.
we would do well as God's people to utilize it more than we do, for sure.
Yeah.
There's so much encouragement that comes from that, right? And this has been an encouragement, even just talking about it, getting together and just being okay to admit that you're not okay, and allow the local church to come alongside you. Man, what an
Yeah.
encouragement! It's great. It's great.
yeah, especially during this season. I mean, this season is just very dark.
Sure.
It's not
sure.
it's not a whole lot of, I mean, even though you hear about a whole lot of Christmas cheer, so to say,
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's not often
in
the
your heart
case.
of hearts,
Yeah.
you may be like the Grinch. Let's be honest here, people.
It's true. Hey, I can be very grinchy. I try not to be, but
This is true.
I can be. Thanks a lot. Oh, this is true. Okay. All right. I see how it is. All right. Well, on that note, Chris Kringle, why don't you get us out of here, man?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you appreciate Josh and I's candor about how the local church can benefit you in times of self-isolation or depression, or you're looking for an outlet to talk to, you can just keep on joining us for these episodes of the Reformatory.
Mhm.
We go through different topics. We appreciate any episode ideas that you have. We're trying to, or even questions. We want a mailbag episode.
Mailbag.
We really want this mailbag episode. We really want some questions. Anything. We might do a Podluck mailbag and a regular episode mailbag, maybe,
Ooh.
to get some exclusive content, if you will. Anyways, if you appreciate what we do here on the Reformatory about making the local church central to the believer's life, you can follow us on those things called the sociables. Yes, the Facebook, the Metaverse, the Instagram goes well with chocolate marshmallow. The sociable, formerly known as Twitter, X, all at the tag at Reformatory Pod. Josh, you can also tell the lovely people how may they support the Reformatory in its endeavors in different ways.
That's right. So there are a few ways that you can do that. First, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you can give us a little rating or review. We'd really appreciate it. Just give us a little 5 stars, helps the podcast get out to more people. Second, we have YouTube. So if you want to watch this monstrosity of a podcast, as well as listen to it, you can head on over there. YouTube.com/reformatorypod, I believe. And, click like, comment, share, hit the little bell for notifications, as the kids say. We'd really appreciate it. Subscribe. We'd appreciate you subscribing. That would be cool. Last but not least, you can head on over to Patreon. We, just like every other podcast and their brother, has a Patreon, but ours is the only one that has a podluck, and that's right. It is the exclusive content, and only for $5 a month, people. That is it. $5 a month, you get multiple bonus episodes. We have a chat. We have a reformatory chat that we ham it up. All right, we talk, and we're actually trying to get more people into the Podluck so that we have more things to chat about. It'd be a lot of fun. Okay, like I said, bonus episodes, exclusive. You get these main episodes, you get them early, so you get a jump on all of this stuff. Okay, and our pledge to you, our vow, if you will, is that if you decide to take the jump, support this podcast with your hard-earned money, all right, $5 a month, our pledge to you is that your name shall be hallowed.
Hallowed, sir. Hallowed.
Hallowed through the halls of the podcast. That is our pledge to you, our people. We really appreciate it. So we're going to head over and record some Patreon episodes right now. That's what we're going to do. You can hear about all of the crazy things that's going on and some fun topics, sometimes serious, usually tobacco related as well. Head on over there. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate all you guys listening, and we will catch you on the next step of the Reformatory.